Before I get going on the video today, I'd just like to take the opportunity to remind you about my email subscription list. The links for the list are in the description of the video below. Just click the link, put your name and your email in, and you're set. You're on the list, and I will be able to update you with the latest projects and information about the channel, but also my latest books, the first of which will be coming out very soon. It's called Only Death Can Save Us. It's a very different version of death from what we've seen in pop culture so far, and he's coming out of retirement to help a transformed human soul, Chrissy, stop an ancient enemy from invading the Earth dimensions with his demon horde. It's going to be action, adventure, pathos and heart all the way through this story. Keystone is the first part of a 4-book series that hurls Chrissy and Dee, that's Chrissy's nickname for death, together on a path through cosmic strangeness and adventure. Its feet firmly in the Bronze Age, the book is edited by Tim Quinn, veteran Marvel editor and a huge creative talent in his own right. The book is all ages without X-rated content, but will not talk down to the reader. All ages means all ages, and it will be action and fun all the way. The book is set for a release in 2020, and anyone who is both on my email list and supports the crowdfunding campaign will get extra perks. Now, thanks for listening, and on with the video. Hi there, welcome back to the dojo. This is Ross Leach. I'm the comic book black belt, and this is one of my Ben10 series. It's number 8 out of 13, and what I do is just take you through how I put together the comic strip for the Ben10 Magazine, which was produced by Cartoon Network and Panini in the UK. And it's really just opening up my files to show other people how I went around the process of penciling, inking and colouring. So it's not a screen capture of the pencil and inking, it's just showing you the layers and the stages that went into the building of the page. But most importantly, it's a cataloguing of how I ratified my processes as far as colouring is concerned, and by the end of the 13 issues had gotten it down to a reasonably slick process that had started off pretty much in chaos, as I hadn't done a lot of colouring prior to that time. The colouring itself is flat shaded, sort of cell shaded colouring. It's very much in the style of Ben10 and Cartoon Network. So I don't class myself as an uber colorist. There's some fantastic colorists out there, but I can put together this kind of colouring quite happily, and I quite like the whole flat shaded look anyway, so I'm not aiming for painted work. So with that said, let's get on and take a look at how this worked out. Like I said, this is issue 8. Start off with just showing you the underlying stuff there. I nicked or repurposed a few bits and pieces that I'd done in previous issues to help me put the pencils together that much quicker. The whole point of these videos is to show how I've got to a point where I'm reprocessing stuff and making the process of making the comic strip that much quicker and slicker. You'll see from the layers on the right hand side, there are a few more layers I think than the last video on show, but each one of them is dedicated, and I've been lazy in a couple of pages and haven't necessarily named them properly, but they're all dedicated to things like foreground characters, midground characters and backgrounds. I suppose I'm kind of producing it almost like they would produce the layers in an actual cartoon, an actual animation on Cartoon Network itself. So there's some of that to it, and actually it helps produce the work. As you can see here, I started off with a sketch, detailed in and started building the characters up so that I could get to the pencils and some inks, and as you can see, the inks aren't my normal style. I've had to follow a house style, very sort of graphic, cartoony look, but it works for the strip. So here again, once again, I've got dedicated layers putting in the characters. So you can just see there the background shading that went over. I'll just flick straight in so you can see. and then how it deepens the background. So I kind of put the flat colours on and then put the highlights, special effects, shaders, that kind of thing on over the top of it. So we'll move on to the next page. Again, sketching it out, nailing down the detail. Again, I've repurposed just the portion of Ben 10 there, and then gone into the inks. Again, this is a better example actually. The layers here, where I've got definitive characters, mid-ground characters, shaders there. So it's my background, and then applying the shading and shadowing for lighting and shadows. So I'm kind of, you'd think, oh, it's the same thing, but there's the whole lighting, as in cell shading with a light source, and then there's special effects for putting in things like spotlights and what have you over the backgrounds. So it's kind of like shading, shadows, and lighting, almost two different aspects of the same thing. But having the cell shade is kind of one thing, because you don't have to be too rigid or strict about where the light source is coming from, because it's very much a characterization thing. But then when you're putting in things like spotlights and putting in shadows over backgrounds where the characters are sitting over the top of the backgrounds and casting shadows, then you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about where the light source is coming from. So again, I've gone straight into the inks here. Something else you'll see is that some of the ink lines are coloured, and it just makes that life that little bit easier when colouring certain characters, especially some of the aliens that Ben 10 turns into. They have coloured lines, so it's not all just black lines and then filling in with colour. The lines themselves are coloured. I started off by doing in the first few issues all black lines and then colorizing those lines or having some kind of filter on them, but as I got further in and as I got more used to the way things worked and the characters, I started using the appropriate colours for the ink lines as well. So my inks I'd send off as a grayscale so that they could so that the publisher could see how all the lines worked, but I would have inked them in the appropriate colours. So that it would make my colour process that much easier and quicker. So that's how that works. So I'm coming into page 5 here. So just a basic layout, reference, putting in some of the detail of the characters, nailing that detail, and then into or nailing the form rather, I should say, rather than the detail, and then going into the pencils and seeing the detail come out. And again, layering everything up. There's a lot more layers here, and like I said, I've been a bit lazy with this page because there was a lot more going on, but it worked out really well. So those were my character layers, which I could have easily grouped into one group there, or put them on the same layer even. And there's all the special effects and the spotlights going in. And moving closer and take a look at this, so you can see how it works. Now the backgrounds that I use here in all the pages are a mixture. Some of them are where I've used textures myself and painted stuff up, sometimes whole paintings of backgrounds, sometimes just textures for floors or walls or that kind of thing, or the sky or what have you. And then in this particular case, what I've done is repurposed backgrounds that are actually from the show. So there are several backgrounds where we had buildings and what have you, and what I've done is I've actually mapped them onto a three-dimensional surface in the top panel, so that it looks like a street, and then applied the rest of my work over the top of that. I wish it was as simple as just nicking the backgrounds. It wasn't. You had to repurpose a lot of the stuff throughout from the show. But it works really well, and then again we've got things like shading and shadowing, light sources and what have you over the top, textures. I thought the 3D street scene worked really well, actually. I was very pleased with that at the end of the day. So moving on now to page 7. And straight into the pencils. This is quite an action scene. Now I had a lot of layers for this because I wanted to work out the way that the water worked. So again, you can see that I'm actually inking in the colour that I'm going to use rather than inking in black and then, you know, using some kind of filter or colourising the lines. And it worked really, really well. So get that background in there and then put the water over the top of it, and it really came out good. And then the special effects, and then finally just a few details I just pinned over the top. So you had a real sense of foreground and background, and like I say, it worked very similarly to the way you would lay out an animation. So quite pleased with that page, and then on to our last page. So again, you know, sketch. I've repurposed the top of some figures there from a previous strip that I drew. Worked out where all the rest of the characters would go, and then nailed down the final pencils. Worked that in and produced the inks. Again, using the colour ink rather than a black line. And filled in again, and this is actually again a better example of the discipline of putting things on the appropriate layers and making them work. There's the background shade and the highlights, and then up to the special effects, reflections, and it came out lovely. There was really pleased with the page. This wasn't actually my favourite story. It was probably one of my least favourite. Not sure about the character, the bad guy, or bad girl, but Queen Bee, I think she's called, or something like that. It's been a while since I did the strip, but it was still great fun to draw. My favourite strips are actually from 9 to 13, and so obviously I'll be back with issue 9 in a while. So hopefully. What you've seen here has helped in some way if you're colouring your own comics, or if you're producing comics, whether it's with clip paint or with Photoshop, and you're using layers. The importance of layers in your process, and then also organising those layers once you've started using them. I might be telling some people to suck eggs, but if there's anybody out there who's watching the channel, who's watching this, and it is of some use, then brilliant. You know, hopefully my experiences are helping somebody else, or there might be something in here that inspires you to do things your own way, and again, that's great as well. So once again, thanks again for watching. Like I say, I'm always humbled by people who subscribe and people who watch. Thank you to everyone at YouTube for subscribing, and more subscribers over on BitChute as well. Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. I'll be back soon. Remember to like, share and subscribe. Sharing is always really important. Hit that subscribe button, and obviously, like I will have mentioned at the start of the movie, the video, do sign up to the email list, the subscription list, so that I can keep everybody informed of the latest updates and what's happening with Only Death Can Save Us, my new graphic novel coming out next year in 2020. So that's about it for this video. Hopefully you join me again next time, and thanks for coming into the dojo today. I'll see you again real soon. Bye bye. Thanks for watching Comic Book Black Belt. If you've enjoyed the content from this video, please like, share or subscribe, and come over and follow me on Twitter. It's been great having you in the dojo. See you again soon.